By this point in the class, we have reviewed two videos, one by the National Geographic Society, based on a book by Jared Diamond called Guns, Germs, and Steel. The other is a PBS video, The Journey of Man. The first video dealt with the question of the inequality between cultures and Jared Diamond's thesis that geography is the main cause. Jared Diamond also opines, or states his opinion, that the cause of inequality is not race. He treats race as if it's completely off the table as an issue. The second video by Spencer Wells doesn't focus as much on geography as the cause of inequality, but does give us a lot of information about how human society developed, societies, that is, of Homo sapiens, developed over the last 100,000 years, and the role that geography did play in the specific development of some of those cultures. However, the prime focus of Mr. Wells' video, Journey of Man, is that the argument that he makes that there really is only one race. There's only the human race, and that Homo sapiens that were alive about 100,000 years ago were small in number, and they resided in southwestern Africa. Their direct descendants who are alive today are called the Song Bushmen. And he, at great length, shows how they moved around the globe, how they came to fill all corners of the globe, and that all Homo sapiens are essentially descended from that one group. He therefore makes an argument that there really is only one race. Now that's important to compare to the Jared Diamond video, because Jared Diamond just dismisses race out of hand, and Wells attempts to prove that, in fact, it can't be race as a source of inequality, because all of the humans on the globe are essentially members of one race. This video has a slightly different question. The question for, after watching the two videos, should be, well, why are some societies more successful than others? Why do they have larger populations? Why do they have more economic wealth? And in answering this question, after watching the two videos, we can refine the question still further for purposes of this course. We can make the question, why is it that China in particular is so successful? Why is it that they have today the world's largest population? Why is it that today they have one of the most distinguished cultural histories there is? Why is it that we can document that they have invented more than half of all the inventions that have ever been invented by Homo sapiens on the surface of this globe? Why they have had, at least since the Roman Empire, the best, strongest GDP year in and year out over the last 2,000 to 2,200 years? And why is it today that they are poised to regain their status as the world's leading economic power? Now that's a question we might want to ask, so let's try to refine that. What is it that has made China so successful? The first thing we need to note is that China is not the only country in Asia that is successful. There's another large population in the country of India, and there are comparatively large populations in countries like Korea, Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and so on. Why is it that all of these countries are so very successful? The first answer to this is geography. Geography does play a role. The geography of Asia is essentially dominated by one very recent major development. The surface of the Earth is covered with tectonic plates. And one of these tectonic plates, the Indian subcontinent tectonic plate, has slid under, starting millions of years ago, under the Asian plate. And this caused a new mountain range to develop. That mountain range is the Tibetan Plateau on its southern edge, rimmed with the Himalayan mountains. Now this large outcropping has not yet had a chance to wear away as some of the other mountain ranges, like the Appalachians, for example. It is still the most recent and the least eroded of all the mountain ranges. And it creates a massively high plateau, subdividing the population center of China from the population center of India. In fact, the Tibetan Plateau is so high that its average altitude is 14,000 feet. And just to put this in perspective, if you're in the United States and you'd like to stand 14,000 feet above sea level, you have a few choices. You know, Mount Whitney, Mount Pikes Peak, Mount Rainier. A small number of mountains are all the mountains that even reach 14,000 feet, and that's the average of the altitude above sea level of the Tibetan Plateau. Now this has certain consequences. The first of the consequences is that the two major population centers, China and India, which might have been antagonists of one another, have no contact at all, or virtually no contact at all, over the last 2,500 years. The mountain range is simply too high to allow easy transit across it. Even today, if you're trying to go by road or by rail across the Tibetan Plateau, it's nearly impossible to do so. And the amount of conflict between China and India is restricted to a few small areas that only troops can enter, because only troops have the necessary logistical capability to even get to where they could fight with one another. So the first thing is that some of the conflicts in Europe that occurred because Europe is relatively flat didn't happen in Asia. They didn't happen between China and India. And the lack of war allowed the populations of both centers to grow without destruction.